I'm kind of interested in this subject matter because this is actually an idea that came from my wife. This is something the Lord spoke to her that I stole because when she said it, I was like, dude, that hits. Like that like, it just resonated with me, and I felt like the Lord began to speak some specific things to me. So if you hear like some really deep, profound, incredible things come out tonight, that was the Lord to my wife. If you hear really dumb things, confusing things, stupid jokes, that's me. That's me. Also, the shirt says Split Fire. Split Fire. I didn't realize it was going to be a thing, but every single person that's seen me wear it has like had a mental breakdown. It says Split Fire. It's a spark plug brand for dirt bikes. It's a whole thing. Doesn't matter. It just does. It says Split Fire. So now that we're all past it, let's pray. Jesus, amen. All right. Sometimes a single sigh is the deepest prayer. All right, we're going to start off. We're going to kick things off in Genesis chapter 26, verse 23. We're going to be talking about a guy named Isaac. This was the son of Abraham, the father of Jacob, right? I get my genealogies really messed up sometimes, but we always hear about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. That's the bloodline that produced what you know as the Israelites or the Jews, from which Jesus came. So we're talking about the middle guy. This would be Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. We're talking about Isaac, the son of Abraham. And so when you hear he, that's what we're talking about, Isaac. Who are we talking about when you see he? Perfect. Genesis 26. From there, your mind can go Isaac if you want, that's fine. From there, Isaac went up to Beersheba. That night, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I'm with you. I will bless you and will increase the number of your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham. So Isaac built an altar there, and he called on the name of the Lord. There he pitched his tent, and there his servants dug a well. This is what I want to sort of break down with us tonight. Isn't that profound? No, that was just me. All right. So I read this and I hope by the time we're done together, this will make a lot of sense, and hopefully it'll speak to you too. But when I read that, it's fascinating because it says that he's in Beersheba, right? And as we all know, Beersheba is in the Negev desert, obviously. When did you guys get out of school? How long ago? Not the seniors, like everybody, the normal people. Last week, so you've been out a week. So we're going to do a little bit of geography tonight, a little bit of hydrology tonight. So it might be painful for those of you that have already been out of school a week plus, or maybe you've been out of school years, young adults in the room, I get it. But Beersheba is a place in the Negev desert. What do we know about deserts? They're dry and they're hot, they're arid, not a lot of water. And so it's really interesting because as I read this, it says, it finishes with he encounters the Lord, so he builds an altar, and he calls on the name of the Lord at that altar. And then he pitches his tent, which signifies that, we're going to sit for a minute. We're going to settle down. These are nomadic people. They're constantly sort of on the move in various spots. Sometimes they'll follow the herds or the water, whatever. But here's a spot where he says that he pitches his tent, and there his servants dug a well. But I'm reading that, and I'm like, I'm no hydrologist, so I don't really know how this stuff works. But is it mildly confusing that they dig a well in the desert? Or am I the only idiot in the room? Where are my people at? Be honest, it's all right. It's all right. It's a safe space. You're in good company here. There's a lot of really dumb people here. You're in really good company. So this is a large group of people. You know, when they say family, it's really more like tribe. When they say family, what they mean is imagine your family reunion. Your family plus every family that your family has made for 3, 4, 5 generations. All the cousins, all the aunts and uncles, all the kids, grandkids, great-grandkids. That's the size that these groups of people tended to roll around as. So how does the middle of the desert produce a place, a well, full enough of water for a significantly large group of people in a desert? And that's sort of where this whole thing kind of started coming from, because I mentioned in passing to my wife I don't even remember why we were having this conversation. I have no idea where it came from. I'm going to guess you don't remember either. Nope. All right. Do you remember? The conversation where this all started, where the word aquifer was mentioned. Do you remember this? Nobody. No, we don't know. We talk about a lot of things. We talk every day. We're really good friends. We love each other a lot. And so, we talk a lot. There's a lot of times that we talk. And so sometimes the stuff we talk about, who knows? Who remembers? We just talk sometimes. And so one time we were talking about the subject of aquifers. And I mentioned to her something I heard as a child that, if I'm honest, I'm not even positive is true, because I heard it as a child, and I haven't been a child for a minute, and my dad is the one who said it, and who knows if he knows if it was actually true. I don't know, but he said, Imlay City, I remember as a child hearing that Imlay City is built on an aquifer. Now, I think there's good support for this hypothesis. I think it makes sense because Norm was like, what's your message on? That's how Norm talks. That's my Norm voice. He's like, what's your message on, Pastor Steve? I go, why? Where are you serving tonight? He goes, I'm doing summer studies with the adults, so I won't be able to hear it. I'm like, all right, well, it's about wells and water. And it was even better. My daughter walked up to me. She's like, what's your message on? Is it about the Lord or God? I was like, yeah, it is. So I remember being told as a child that Imlay City's on an aquifer. That supposedly beneath our feet, far, far below our feet, there is this mysterious body of water just down there. It's just there, guys. There's just a bunch of water down there. If you got down far enough, you could easily swim around. You'd probably die. You'd probably get stuck. It's basically like swimming in an underwater cave. You'd probably die. But what happened is I think I sort of mentioned in passing, because for the most part, my wife grew up in a city. And in a city, where's the water come from? The elves, right? Where they have the water plant, and the water shows up at your house through all the tunnels under your house. But out here, no. What do we do? What do we do to get water, at least at most of our houses out in the country? We dig a well. And well water has such a specific taste. And it's different at everybody's house. And I promise your water tastes like trash. But if you came to my house, my water tastes great, but you would think it tastes like trash. Because I'm used to my water and not your water. And I like my water and your water sucks. But out here we dig wells. So some machine comes and digs really, really deep through a bunch of earth and sand and clay and rock until it hits a place where the top of it is referred to, again, I'm no hydrologist, but from my understanding and research, the top of said water is called the water table. So the top of, I think, an unconfined aquifer is what they call the water table. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point is there's a bunch of water down there. And when I said that, Janelle's mind exploded. She was obsessed. I would look over, and she's scribbling things in her phone. And this is for weeks. She's sort of studying this, interested in this subject matter, and Googling what an aquifer is, what it looks like, how does it work. And again, I was having a conversation with Norm. I was like, have you ever wondered where do you have well water or city water? He's like, we have a well. I said, well, where do you think that water comes from? Do you think you just drill down and the well pump just sucks up dirt and your faucet converts it to water? Or do you think that your well goes down and then it hangs a left and goes over to Lake Michigan and it sucks it from there up? How do you think it works? And it was one of those moments where all of us, if you're honest, you're kind of I never thought about it, but now that I do, that's kind of incredible. That was the moment that we had. It was I heard as a kid Imlay City's on an aquifer, which makes sense because everybody has wells, but I've thought about that 0 times for about 25 years. Until the last week or two. And suddenly it became really fascinating that it's possible that like water comes on the surface of the earth, and then it filters through the best filtration system known to man, i.e. the one God designed. Sand and clay and dirt and rock, until it hits an open space, at which point the bottom of it is an impermeable layer of rock. Okay, we've been out of school for a week or a long time, so what does impermeable mean? We'll do multiple choice, but you only get A or B. Impermeable means stuff can pass through it, or B, cannot pass through it. Where's the A's in the room? It cannot. Well, I don't remember which was which. It can pass through it is A, and B means it cannot pass through it. All right, no one's voting. Well, this November should turn out great for all of us. So there is an impermeable layer of rock. Impermeable means that it's not able to pass through. It is impermeable. It cannot be permeated. So the water reaches an impermeable layer of rock, meaning it can't go any further. Because if it doesn't reach this layer of rock, I mean, I'm no hydrologist, but I feel like what that means is if it never reaches an impermeable layer, it just keeps going through permeable layers until it reaches the Earth's core, at which point the conservation of energy would not allow it to disappear, but it would turn into steam. That's my best guess. I have no idea if that's true. Google me. I don't know, but it makes sense. At a certain point under us, though, there's an impermeable layer of rock. The water hits it, and it can't go any further. So what does it do? It begins to build up. And we ultimately get what's commonly known as an aquifer. So our job when we're digging the well is to permeate through all of the layers, permeable or not. We make them permeable by our sheer brute strength, and get to a place where there's a bunch of water to tap into so we can pull it up. I actually have I'm just going to do this. So here's my diagram. Isn't it pretty? I did not make it. It was a commissioned work. I asked Miranda to do it. But I'm obsessed with this. I told her, I was like, I want to take this home and like turn it into a fish tank for my kids. We just have, that's food coloring. Water's not actually that color. I don't know how many of you are just hearing this now, but the Lord needs you to know that water is clear. It's not that color of blue. But this is, let's look at this as sort of like a diorama. Is that a good word for this? This is a cross-section of Earth. Now, I'm no hydrologist, so this is not accurate, okay? Don't hold me to this. This is probably not what the layers look like, okay? This is probably not, if you dig a hole in Inlay City, this is probably not what you're gonna get, but it's like representative, okay? This is the gist. There's stuff, and then there's wet stuff, and then there's more stuff. That's the gist, okay? That's how we get to a well. So even in the desert, there's stuff. What's the most of the stuff in the desert? Sand, yeah. And then there's wet stuff at some point underneath that. We call that water. And then underneath that, there's rock, sand, I don't know. Never been to the water table in a desert before. But it's clearly possible because he digs a well. So if we look at this as sort of our representation, ultimately, digging produces results because the earth below you, like what's underneath your feet right now, the earth below you is saturated with the very thing you need to live. Like what you need to exist. If you were, I don't know, stranded, if you're in a Mr. Beast video, stranded in the middle of the woods in the wilderness or something like that, and you're like, there's no streams or rivers around or lakes for fresh water, I'm going down. A, you win. Let's be honest. You would win that challenge if you're smart enough to do that. B, you might die, because I don't know how long it takes to get down there, but I will tell you it's there. At some point past the surface, you're going to reach the wet stuff that ultimately you need to survive. Have you ever been on the beach and you're sitting in like the dry sand and you start digging, and you start digging, and and you start digging, and you just keep going because there's nothing better to do at the beach because the beach sucks. Sorry, it's the truth. Where are my pool people at? Where are my beach people at? Pool people, boo them. Boo. Beach people, shut up. Just take it. Just take it. But you're sitting there and you're digging in the sand, and it's dry sand. I mean, it's like, you maybe feel it's clumpy, but it's not soaked with water. And you keep going, you keep going, you keep going. And at a certain point, what happens? You breach the water table of the ocean, because underneath all that sand, you know what there is? A bunch of wet stuff, just like the ocean. And ultimately, what you're doing when you're digging a well is the exact same thing you're doing when you're digging at the beach. You're getting down through everything that's keeping you from the thing that sustains you. You're getting low enough into it to reveal it that you might receive from it and replenish yourself. Does that make sense? What Isaac does in that moment, he has his servants dig. In the desert, they dig. So if you think about this, because for us, like, how do you dig a well nowadays? Doesn't your dad do this, Mackenzie? So a big well drilling guy with a machine, a big well driller, comes out, and I'm assuming they probably take some tests and do something to make sure that it's even worth it to drill in the spot they're going to drill in. Now, what would they do back in the day when they're drilling a well? It actually, in this chapter, we're not going to read it tonight, but if you want to read Genesis 26, it's a great story. It talks about how the servants dig and find water, and then there's a big fight. So they dig and find water again, and there's a big fight, and then they dig and find water. And I think there's a story even how they dig and didn't find water. Like, this is a very, very common thing where you dig, but then there's no water. But you don't find out there's no water until you dig. So for us, we'll sort of represent, I'll be the well drilling guy, the machine. See if this works. Tell me when you see it in the wet stuff. Good? All right, let's, ew, gross. Oh yeah, I can see it, all right. I'll probably let some dirt falling in there. So, they dig the hole. And I'm just because I wanted to do this, I just thought this was cool. This is called siphoning. This is what your parents used to do to steal gas from each other. Straight up. They just like put a tube in one car. Sean's smiling. Sean's done this before. It doesn't work on modern vehicles, right? They have anti-siphon valves or whatever. But you just put it in the thing that you want to steal. You got to make sure it's higher so that the pressure's higher, and you just get it going. And as long as it stays lower than that, it's like, watch. See, it got higher than that. Bernoulli's principle, right? Stuff wants to go from high pressure to low. No, it doesn't matter. Okay, we're just going to let that go. So this is what's happening. When we're using a well, we're slowly pulling from it consistently what we need. We're taking a shower. You're washing your hands. You're doing the dishes. You're washing your car. I don't know. But we never stop to think how do we get there? Like, how did that happen? Think about back in the day, okay, when they want to wash something or drink some fresh water, they go and they got the bucket at the bottom of the hole and they pull the bucket up. It's also how they hurt people a lot in horror movies, right? They toss them down a well. It's always a thing for some reason. It's is there no other way to die except to fall down a well or to get trapped in a well? Why is that a normal thing to get trapped in a well? So they pull the bucket out, and the bucket's got water in it, and they pull it up and they use it. Why? Because they dropped the bucket low enough that it breached past the water table. But how did the well get there in the first place? It says that Isaac's servants went and dug a well. They pitched their tents, and they dug a well. But they don't have the well driller guy. And wells are deep. You're not going to, in Imlay City, strike water. If that's, you strike oil, you can strike water. You're not going to strike water at 10 feet in. You're going to go for a minute. So if you think about this, they don't even have post hole diggers. We would do You seeing these guys? Your dad was probably doing that this weekend. They didn't even have that. Like some crude shovel, their hands, maybe they made some sort of pickaxe or something like that. But think about this process. I break the soil, remove the soil. I break the soil, I remove the soil. I break the soil, and I do that for a few hours. Where am I standing a few hours in? Think about this. Like, where am I now? Okay, so this is the ground. This is the soil I break, start removing. About an hour in, imagine I'm still in the same spot. An hour in, this is me. An hour in, 4 hours later, this is me. 8 hours later, can you still see me on the cam? That's me, head poking out. And you just keep going. 20, 30, 40, 60, 80, 100 feet, I don't know, a minute. Like, it's fascinating because in modern times, the way we dig it is from the surface, we send something else down. In ancient times, the way it was dug was from the surface, we sent the dude down. And wells get dug very simply, not very simply. It's probably one of the worst physically taxing things a human being could do. But there's 2 steps. Stay where you are and dig deep. Yeah, I see a bunch of heads going down to write that in your notes because you know where we're going with this next, right? Stay where you are, dig deep. That simple. You stay where you are, you dig deep, and you keep doing that, and you keep doing that, and you keep doing that. You will always hit water. See, but a lot of times, it's just, it's like collision was just fire. Oh, man, it's a lot of work. A couple months later, it's like, conference? Conference was just, man, the Lord spoke to me. Oh, my goodness, is it Easter already? This is exhausting. Am I supposed to read this Bible thing every single day? Do you know how exhausting that is? Oh, they're doing some really sick summer stuff. Let's go, guys. Oh, my goodness. Do they really expect me to be here every week? Like, honestly, I have nothing better to do than to be here every single week. Oh, but collision's coming up again, guys. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that was a really good hit. That got me through September. What's next? It becomes really easy to not stay where you are. But think about the process of okay, I expect the water more premature than I should. I'm a well digger, and all they've given me is a pickaxe and maybe a shovel, and I think that water is 10 or 15 feet down. You know what you get? You get the movie Holes. You know what I'm talking? That's one of the best movies ever, for one. Where are we at? You get a bunch of holes not that deep. You get a bunch of spread out, shotgunned, half-hearted intentions that barely broke the surface until my resolve kind of ran out. My commitment kind of let up. You get a bunch of pokes in the soil, but because I expect results more quickly than I should, it's why is this not working yet? I'm going to try somewhere else. Why is this not working yet? I'm going to try somewhere else. Why is this not working yet? Whereas if you just stayed where you were and just keep digging, just keep digging, just keep digging, just keep digging. If you just stayed where you were and dug deep, you'd ultimately hit the thing that would refresh and replenish your soul. So I think a lot of people, what they struggle with is the staying where you are. It's maybe in and out of church or trying a bunch of different churches or I don't really, I'm not sure what I like as far as serving. I'm not sure what suits me, so I'm just going to try every single thing, and I'm just going to keep cycling between those things instead of just going yo, you seem like you need people on your team. I see a need. How could I help? And the guy's you could help this way, and you're I'm here, and I'll be here next week, and however deep you need me to dig, I'm going to dig until we strike water together. But this process of just going all over, you might end up with some really good rain-holding holes. And you will have muddy water for like a day or two. But its goal is always to get to the well. Its goal is always for the groundwater to permeate the permeable until it reaches the impermeable. That is always the path of water. That is the water cycle. I'm no hydrologist, but this is what I understand to be true. I think some of us just struggle with the process of like just being all over the place and just not being willing to just like have someone speak vision into your life if you don't feel like you have vision and run with it instead of going, yeah, I don't know. Like, hey, I feel really visionless. Will you speak something into my life? What about this? Yeah, I don't know. What about over here? What about over here? Some of us, that's what we struggle with. Some of us, you've been here for years. You've never changed a thing. You're the exact same person, serving in the exact same area, sitting in the exact same seat. Because what you struggle with is the inability to go deep. One of the most painful things for me as a young adult pastor, and if I'm honest, because they're humans, I do this every week, is the moment when I realize they weren't being totally honest with me in that conversation we just had. It hurts, like every time. When like we sit and we take the time and like my heart is to see you grow. Pastor Dave, Pastor Tyler's heart, our hearts are to see you grow. And it's like we have a great moment, great conversation. You just find out later they weren't being fully honest in that conversation because they're afraid of our opinion of them or they don't, whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is you're not willing to like be so vulnerable, so open, so honest, transparent with the people around you that it would actually allow you to put down roots in the place you've already been for so long anyway. Like, some of you, you've been here so long, why not just put down roots? Where are you going? Why the exit strategy? Like, I have so many conversations with people who it's like, ultimately, it's so obvious that they're just not, like, there's just a bunch of subject matters that are just off limits. They don't want to go there. But it's really obvious being in the conversation that that subject is one of the biggest keys to their freedom and breakthrough that we're having the conversation about in the first place. Well, I'm trapped in this. Okay, but how you doing with this? I'm trapped in this. I know. I hear you. But how are you doing with this? Like, what's the Lord doing over here? I'm really sorry. I forgot I have to work tomorrow. And ultimately, you like this is always tied to this. You want freedom here? Typically, it comes through somewhere else. Typically, it's adjacent. But we treat the symptoms so often rather than treating like the source. Because the source is like, I've never really opened that up to people. I've just never gone there. It's just like a wound from my childhood that like I don't know, I just don't talk about it. It's like a wound, it's an offense that somebody in my last church hurt me with, or somebody in this church 3 years ago hurt me with, and I just don't go there. It's nobody's business. Or what's some other good ones? Like, it's just between me and the Lord. Me and Jesus talk about this a lot. Like, okay, but who in Jesus's body have you walked this out with? Yes, the head, who is Christ. It's necessary that we confess our sins, yes. But when the Bible speaks of confession, it is actually one to another that we might experience wholeness, healing, salvation. Like, what happened if you just were willing to go deep? Like, let the Lord speak to some things that have been off limits. Opened your heart up to some people around you that have been off limits. We're honest with some of your boys about how terrified you are about X, Y, or Z. The fear that keeps you up at night, that you're never going to be X, Y, or Z, that you're going to turn out like your dad or your mom, or you're never going to find some. What if you were just like, honest enough to like put down roots and go deep. Because you want to get to the well, or you want to get to the water, you want the well to get to the water, you have to stay in the same place, and you have to go deep. Oh, guys, you didn't tell me this is going to overflow. Let the river flow. Isn't there a current worship song about overflowing? I just couldn't think of it, so I went back to the 90s. How are we doing tonight? You guys, it's fine. It's awkward. I get it. You're lying. It's fine. I'm secure enough to stand up here no matter what. I just want you guys to feel good about you. My wife smirked at that. She liked that. You like that? Over time, the well depletes. Look at our well. Can you tell yet? We were up here. Over time, the bucketful's coming out. Over time, the well pump pulling up your long showers. Where my long shower people at? Let's go. I so badly want an instant hot water heater. Tankless. Oh, man. You got one, right? That's the stuff dreams are made of. I don't shower every day, but when I do, every bit of 45 minutes, 50 minutes. You think? It's however long the water's hot. That is God's way of telling you to get out of the shower when the water's cold. Because I was restricted to short showers in my parents' house. He shut the water off on me one time because I was taking longer than a 7-minute shower. And that's the straight up truth. He said 7 minutes, and it was like 7:01, and he shut the water off and filmed me because he thought it was a hilarious video. That is your pastor, ladies and gentlemen. That is your pastor. You hear me in the background of the video like, what, was it 7:01? Like a really snotty teenager. Look, we can't complain that there's no water if you weren't actually willing to stay in the same spot and go deep. I hear a lot of people complaining that they're lacking the purification of the water, the cleansing of the water. The Word often talks about water in forms of the purification, cleansing, the Spirit, the Word. You're asking for the water of the Spirit, but you're not willing to stay where you are and go deep. You're not willing to commit, make covenant with a group of people and go, I'm not going anywhere unless I hear and we hear together that the Lord has asked me to go. Like, we're going to hear His voice together. I trust you with my life. I trust you with hearing the Lord's voice with me, not for me, with me. But we want to complain that our lives aren't saturated to the level that we really want them to be, that we're lacking the resistance to temptation, that we're lacking the ability to discern His voice and to understand what He wants for the next step of our lives, that we're lacking the ability to actually affect the world around us. We want to complain that we're useless, but we're not willing to stay where we are and go deep. You don't get to complain that there's no water if you didn't actually dig the well. And all throughout Scripture, there's this subject matter of when wells dry up, ultimately the water cycle requires that they become recharged. It's the actual word. I'm no hydrologist, but from my understanding, that is the actual word in the water cycle is water coming back into the groundwater and filling it back up is referred to as a recharge. Now, how does water refill the aquifer that you are draining via your well? How does it get back down there? Come on, guys. This is not rocket science. Don't make me say it. What? I see hands? Yes. Let's all say it together. 3, 2, 1. Rain. Rain comes. Hold on. Oh, that was close. Should have had them crack this for me ahead of time. Rain comes and refills. Can we get this in? I also want you guys to know how much you mean to me, because this is a smart water. And I realized that, honestly, like, I could have changed it out. I kind of wanted to go dump it into another bottle so I didn't waste smart water and just go get, like, cheap Sam's Club water. But I was like, no, okay? You guys mean smart water to me. You need to understand that. That is the level of commitment. That's the well I'm willing to dig, okay? That's how deep I'm willing to go, is you guys mean smart water to me. And I have a lot because I have an Amazon subscribe and save, so they come, there's so many. It's like rabbits. It's like how they just pop, there's more every time I come in the office. There's so much smart water, guys. It's ridiculous. You would not believe the amount of smart water that I have. The rain, like the smart water, recharges the aquifer. we deplete it, the rain recharges it. Now, I love rain. Where are my rain people at? Rain, warm rain is the greatest climate condition on planet Earth. Changed my mind. Like there is nothing I love more. Janelle and I are actually the same on this. We love warm rain. Not everybody loves rain. I get it. Actually, Janelle and I last year, we were trying, right before Eden was born, we were trying to do this little baby moon. Trying to get away for just like one night without kids to just like be with each other, right? And we're really excited because like we left a movie, like you can show this little video. We left a movie, I don't remember what we saw, but we're walking out and it's like downtown somewhere and it starts to just drizzle. Just the most beautiful, warm drizzle. You probably can't even see it on camera, right? You can't even tell. It's just this nice, but that's what I'm talking about. It's just this nice, warm drizzle. And then, you know, we're having fun, so like, let's go get snacks. It's snack time. So we decided, let's go to Walmart. And in Walmart was the moment where I started to get like a little nervous. Like we're in Walmart, getting my popcorners, chips. This is before I started doing carnivore and I could still have gluten-free chips. That's gone now, so that's awesome. And on the roof, we began to hear, you know, like rain on a flat building? But my mind was like, yeah, but the roof's flat. Like when it rains in here, it doesn't matter how hard the rain is. It sounds like a hurricane. Like in this building, if you are just like misting the hose on top, it literally sounds like a category 5. It's already gotten a name. Everyone's boarded up their windows. Like it sounds like it's like hardcore. So we're in Walmart and that's my thought. I'm like, well, the roof's flat. So I'm sure it's a light rain like it was before. No. The wells were thirsty this evening, my friends. The wells were thirsty. My wife's pregnant. And so I say to her, I will go pull up the vehicle. That is what men do. Ladies, that is the only reason you marry us. It allows you to have children, and it makes sure that you do not ever have to get into a vehicle having walked more than a few feet. I decide to be a good husband, and I go outside. This is me coming back inside. I was outside 30 seconds. Look, like 30 seconds I was outside. This is not a joke. What I'm saying in the video is to walk out to the truck, I had to walk in water. I'm going up to the knee. It's up to the knee. Like, this is us driving. I have never experienced this in my entire life. This was the craziest, what's the word? Ecological disaster I have ever been a part of. Like, it was wild. It's not you could sort of see it in the video where like the rain is sideways and I am literally drenched. You can maybe jump forward. Like, then I go to park the vehicle. I drop her off in the carport of the hotel, go to park the vehicle. This is what I have to walk back to the hotel in. You see this? Did you see the shoes? Did you see what I was dealing with? Everybody else's cars, toast. I drove up to the highest ground I could find because Mama didn't raise no dummy. But all these guys are literally like water. You could see it. It was like in the car with them and they're parked in. So the next day, we're really stoked. We go on a bike ride, and we wanted to ride our bikes in this nice park. Everything's dry, and like, let's ride our bikes over to the Frisbee golf place where the Frisbee golf course is. This is what blocks our path. This is what we ultimately run into, and we have no idea. We're like, we can drive around, but no, we're not going to drive around. We're going to ride our bikes because it's a faster path. So we get too far to turn around, get to this spot, and it is literally like maybe if I'd put you on my shoulders or something, we could have passed. But she's 8 months pregnant at this point. And then the stinking Frisbee golf, the whole course is completely gone. I'm looking around like there was supposed to be Frisbee golf here, and it is completely under water. That is the post that tells you the hole number you're on. And this right here, probably the next shot, is the shot that's supposed to show the actual Frisbee golf. What do they call them? The chains? Is that what it's actually called? Is chains? The hole. It's not a hole. It's chains. It's chains. Completely gone. Completely submerged. It was like being on the set of Titanic. Like, it was legitimately the craziest thing I've ever experienced. All right, you can turn it off. So, needless to say, we loved it. I thought it was super fun. She thought it was super fun. We loved it. Like, it's not comfortable. I mean, my undies were soaked when I came out of Walmart. Like, socks, shoes, that was not the plan. I would have prepared differently, but it was super fun. But not everybody loves rain. But when we look in stories like this in the Bible, you need to understand the context of these people. This is an agrarian society. These are people who live moving around, or when they plant, own the fields, and they plant crops. So rain, to them, always a good thing. Like, when you're looking in the scripture, rain represents the word. It represents God's blessing. It represents the Holy Spirit. It represents a promise of prosperity. So here's my question to you tonight. Like, how many good things has God rained on in your life that you're ultimately not willing to dig deep enough into? Like, guys, how many collisions have you been to? How many conferences have you been to? How many gatherings like tonight have you been to? How many encounters have you been to? How many times have you been to the altar? And it's really easy to, like, sense the rain of the Spirit, sense the rain of the Word, sense the rain of God's blessing, and it's a super high moment because we're at the altar and we sense His rain. But you know what He's saying with the rain? Is He's saying right where you are, dig an altar, or make an altar, put up tents, and dig a well. He's saying where I just encountered you, where I just spoke to you, dig deep. The thing I just brought up in your heart, the conversation we're trying to have, the relationship I'm speaking to, the thought process, the plan for your future that I just hinted at in that moment where you felt the rain on your shoulders, dig. Start digging now. Don't move until you hit water. Because once you hit water, everyone around you gets to be replenished from the thing that God did in you. But when you keep digging random holes, or you never go deep enough, or you're never willing to stay, all you end up doing is creating places for people to fall into, get hurt, miss out. You end up creating spaces where you're a stumbling block because you were so shallow when the Lord spoke, and He gave you rain, and He gave you His word, and He spoke in His Spirit, and He brought it up, and He made clear in this moment. You guys know what I'm talking about. You know the moment of collision, of just the high. Everyone leaves collision. I will evangelize the entire earth single-handedly. Come school, it's like, it's big earth. That's like a lot of people. And I understand reality somewhere in the middle. You come out of that high, though, you understand the Lord was speaking to me that I'm not sharing the love of Jesus with my friends, family, or coworkers, whatever it is. So do you immediately get another job? Change schools? Stop coming to church? Or do you go, okay, I hear what you just said. I sense where you just spoke. How do I dig? How do we go deeper? How do I get more so that the further I go, I can hit water that might not only replenish me, but replenish my family, and then the well stays up for everyone else who comes to it. Jesus encounters a woman in His ministry at Jacob's well. Jacob was Isaac's son. The well still stands. One of Abraham's wells in the Negev desert still stands to this day. Why? Because the rain keeps recharging it. And anything that comes up gets replenished. And if the Word and the Spirit is the water, there's no scenario where the well you're digging ever goes dry. Because geologically speaking, sometimes that can happen. But there's no scenario if ultimately that's the Lord. There's no scenario where that well ever goes dry. So here's my question. Why do you feel so dry? Why do we feel so dry? Look down. Look down right now at the ground. It's down there. I understand you can't see it, but it's there. The well outside this place proves that it's there. We know it's there. We know we have access. One of my favorite scriptures, I think Pastor Tyler just used it recently. 2 Peter chapter 1. His divine power has given us everything we need for a godly life through our knowledge of him who has called us by his own glory and goodness. We have everything we need for a godly life. So why do you feel so dry? Why do you and I often feel so dry when there is so much water readily available beneath us? This is ultimately where the thought came from for Janelle. She became fascinated with this idea of like, the ground is dry, and yet there's so much underneath, which means that if I just did the right things, I could have access to everything down there. Like if I just positioned my heart properly before the Lord, if I was just willing to stay where I am and go deep, and then he says we're not going deep enough, there's no water yet, then we go deeper, and we go deeper, and we go deeper, and I let him open every wound, and I'm willing to have every conversation, and I'm willing to step into every relationship that he draws me into, and I'm willing to let go of whatever he asks me to let go of, and we go deeper, and we go deeper, and we go deeper. But ultimately, oftentimes, you and I are dry simply because you don't really have faith that there's anything down there. And it doesn't immediately produce, so we move on and we dig a different well. And it doesn't immediately produce the results in us that we wanted. It doesn't immediately quickly do the thing that we were hoping it would do, so we move on. We try something else. But what happens if we don't go anywhere and we just go deep? What happens if you dig through some of the hard, permeable stuff, the stuff that has to get broken up before it can get pulled out, the stuff that can't just get sucked out like the sand, like it has to get shattered and then pulled out piece by piece, like a rock getting shattered and pulled out piece by piece. But I'm willing because I recognize that this stuff is so valuable to my life. I recognize that every time I'm here, there's rain. I recognize that he's constantly refilling that aquifer. But if I'm not getting access to it, it's ultimately because I'm not willing to keep going deep. I don't want it to completely overflow. We'll pull it now. Like, why do you and I end up dry if ultimately we have access to so much? This is the question that we've been asking ourselves, Janelle and I. This is the question that we're laying before the Lord. Like, why do I feel a lack of joy sometimes, a lack of peace right now? Why do I feel a lack of excitement about what you're doing if there's so much to be had? PD, the last couple of weeks, he talked about like being on vacation and just like sharing with people, like sharing the gospel, evangelizing, having cool conversations. And he made a statement. I was sitting either on the front row or the second row. And he made a statement, and he wasn't lying. He genuinely thinks this to be true. He said, any one of my family members could tell you the stories of like having encounters with people. And I sat there going, I couldn't. I can't. Not one. Like, if I'm just real, I'm just going to be, like, honest with you guys. 2 weeks, not one. And he said it thinking I had because he knows that's what I've always done. That's just what we do. That's what we've always done. Especially, it's just easier to talk to people about Jesus, not at home. For whatever reason, it's so much simpler. And I sat there and I listened to that, and I was like, oh, you suck. Because that's a really dry well for me right now. That's a really dry well. Because I think ultimately I'm being asked to like dig it deeper, but it just feels exhausting. Like it just feels like that's all I got. Because we spent 2 weeks, I can give you a million excuses, but ultimately life is crazy with 3 small children, and it is the greatest joy of our lives. But it's just different. It's chaotic. And I can use that as an excuse, but in reality, what actually happens is the minute you can get away from that, I wanted to read my book or watch something or mindlessly scroll or just sit and do nothing. I didn't want to like stir up a conversation. And so I didn't. Earlier in this chapter, in Genesis 26, there's this moment where it speaks of the things that God had done through Abraham, the wells that Abraham had dug. Let's read this together. Genesis 26:12. It says, in this area, Isaac planted crops in that land. In the same year, he reaped 100-fold because the Lord blessed him. The man became very rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines around him envied him. So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father, so before him, Abraham. The Philistines stopped up those wells, filling them with earth. You know what happens when you take a well and you fill it with a bunch of dirt? It's kind of nasty when you pull the bucket up. Then Abimelech said to Isaac, "Move away from us. You become too powerful for us." So Isaac moved away from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar, where he settled. And Isaac reopened the wells that had been dug in the time of his father Abraham, which the Philistines had stopped up after Abraham died. And he gave them the same names his father had given them. Isaac reopened the wells of his father. That's very simply what I felt the Lord sort of speaking to me. Some of you, the reality is you've never dug the well. You've never gone deep enough to hit the thing that actually refreshes. You keep your relationship with the Lord, the relationship with his people, very surface level. It's just like, I'm just here, and I'm definitely here when stuff's really fun, but if there's like not a lot of fun stuff going on for a few weeks, like maybe I'm not here. And then there's those of us who I would say, like, you've dug wells. You know what it's like. You know what it feels like to go so deep, and it feels like you're looking up. Imagine being in a 40, 50-foot well, and you're digging, and you're looking up going, "Dear Lord, I hope that rope holds when I need to climb back out. But I know that we haven't hit water yet, so I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep going until that moment where you hit water." Can you imagine the excitement, the refreshing after a hot desert dig for days? The refreshing, cooling. You know that feeling. I know that feeling. But I recognize that there are some wells that I dug deep, and I can tell you I can tell you the years. I can tell you the time of my life when the Lord was doing it. I could go through my phone and I could tell you all the things he was speaking when it happened. And I think there's some of those things that I look at now that I'm just like, golly. It's literally just a hole with a bunch of dirt in it. That used to be the place that I drew out refreshing every time I needed it, because the Lord had encountered me and showed me himself and spoken something to me. And I look at it now, and it's just dirt. And that can be so overwhelming, because it's like, well, golly, what do I do now? I remember how much work it was to get to that water the first time. You do whatever you want to do, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to reopen the wells. I don't know what all of them are yet. The Lord hasn't necessarily spoken every single one, but I am recognizing there's some things in my life where I lack joy, and I used to feast on joy. The joy of the Lord used to be my strength, and I just feel no joy. And I used to be able to draw from that well every time I needed it, and he refreshed me. And he's still there. The water's still there. It's the same temperature, and it's the same amount of refreshing, but I haven't tasted it in a minute because I have not been willing to dig it back up. And whether it's my own decisions that covered it up or the enemy that covered it up, it's irrelevant. It's a pile of dirt, and I need it to be a well. I need it. I need it. Like my soul thirsts for God, for the living God. I need it. And he's not withholding himself from me. It's there. The question has very simply become for me, like, are you willing to dig? The question for you is, are you willing to dig? For some of you, this might be your first well. It's like, I don't know what this means. This is overwhelming. It's very euphemistic and it feels like a lot of metaphors. The point is, are you willing to stay where you're at, where the Lord's placed you, and really give your life to him and to the people that he's placed you around, and open up fully, no holds barred? But for those of us, you understand the metaphor, and you know you've dug some wells, and there's nothing but earth. What's next? What do you want to do? Do you want to drink again? Or are you willing to just cover that up and pretend that you never had that in the first place? And we'll go dig somewhere else. I want to see it reopened because I need my kids to see what it looks like, and I need my marriage to have that, and I need our ministry and the things we're a part of and the things we're touching in this community, I need them to see that. Because that well is the only thing that separates us from them. What you dig up and what the Word and the Spirit gives you is the only thing that makes you any different than the world. It's all you have. It's all I have. Can you bow your heads? Close your eyes. What's the plan? What are you going to do? What do you want to see next? So there's going to be 2 calls, and then I'd love to just spend a few minutes at the altar together. Just let the Lord reign on you. But one, you feel the Lord drawing you into digging your first well. And like really what that means is you have never given your life to Jesus. And you recognize like, I'm just here. And even if I've been here a bunch of times, I've never been willing to like go past the surface to really receive from him what I need. And if that's you and you want to give your whole life to Jesus, freely exchange all of your sin and shame and condemnation and everything that's broken inside of you, if you want to give it fully to him, and in return receive the goodness and the mercy and the love of God, if that's what you desire in this moment, I just want you to raise your hand. The raising of your hand, thank you. It's nothing special. Thank you. It's not magic. It's just you signifying a willingness to say like, I want, thank you. You can put it back down. I want the Lord to have all of me. Thank you. You can put it back down. I want to give all of myself to the Lord. Thank you. The rest of us, you know who you are. I want to see the well reopened in our lives. Can we stand together? This last week, there was someone from our church working near our house. And they had been there before. And Janelle had a really good conversation with him, and he just asked for prayer for his wife and their marriage. And just asked that the Lord would just speak into their life, speak into her, show her his goodness, show her the Lord's goodness, and draw her to himself, and that he'd bring healing and restoration. So Janelle prayed that. This is, I don't know, months ago, probably last year. He was there doing some work again, and so Janelle ran into him. And he said, I've been looking for you. I wanted to tell you, like I've been looking because he comes to our church. He's like, I've been going in the lobby trying to find you every time I'm there because I wanted to tell you this story. When you prayed for me, and what's she praying for again? She's praying for like his marriage, his wife to know the Lord and their marriage to be restored. He said, when you prayed for me and you prayed for my wife and you prayed for my daughter who's got some medical issues, and you prayed just that the Lord would like use me. He said, I feel very embarrassed because I didn't want to tell you this, and I don't really want to say it out loud, but I've been battling an addiction to alcohol and to chewing tobacco for a really long time. This was yesterday, right? He goes, when you prayed for me, for my marriage, the Lord broke me of my alcohol and nicotine tobacco, or chewing tobacco addiction. He said, I went to go drink again, and I got like I put some chew in, and I threw up. Like I felt so sick. I literally threw it up, and I haven't been able to do it since. Can we give the Lord some praise? I tell you that to show you that like this was a well that like we used to dig, she and I. And I haven't dug it in a minute. I don't have a bunch of stories of God doing cool stuff. I've been busy, and I've been paying attention to other crap. But I want to give God glory that like if you're willing to dig, if you're willing to go into even some of those old wells that are stopped with earth and reopen them and do the work to dig it all back up until you see water flowing again, it will not just refresh and replenish you. It will touch everyone around you. They will drink from that same well. That's a well that Janelle dug through all of college, through moving here, through our early marriage, through motherhood. That is a well she has dug for a long time. And yes, we're both, I think, in a process right now of digging it open again. But I want you to recognize that if you're willing to do it, if you're willing to dig, the funny thing is we were talking, we're like, he just wanted prayer for his marriage. but the Lord knew that what his marriage needed more than anything was for him to be broken of some addiction. And so you know how the Lord's reaching his wife? Through him being healed of things that are not of God and him laying those things down. And God's doing exactly what we prayed. It's just not exactly what we prayed. You willing to dig? You'll get the water. I'm going to pray over you, and then I want to just spend some time at the altar together. If you want to receive Jesus for the first time, would you just put your hand up? I want people around you to be able to pray alongside with you. If you want to receive Jesus for the first time, and you raised your hand earlier, put your hand up right now. Have some boldness. Have some courage. Put your hand up. Oh no, we're just going to all put hands on each other? All right, everybody put your hands on the person next to you, and then they'll inadvertently get prayed for. It's all right. We got to have courage, guys. You want to see the well reopened or dug for the first time, you got to have the guts to do what the Lord's asking you to do. So let's do it together. If you want to receive Jesus, we're all going to pray this together. We're going to believe that he's going to move in your life and he's going to touch you in a powerful way. Jesus, I love you. I give you my whole self. I recognize that I have done a lot in my own way, but I want you to have the reins. I give you everything, and I thank you that I receive you in return. You are Lord of my life. It's all yours. Let me just pray over you. For those of you who want to receive right now the water of the Word and the Spirit, and you want the well in your life that you know long ago was dug, but you haven't walked in it for a long time, and you recognize as I'm talking, you look back on some collisions and some conferences and some encounters and some altar times where you know what the Lord spoke and you know what he was asking you to do and you know what he was setting you up for, but you are no longer walking in those things. I pray over you right now. Receive the power of the Holy Spirit to redig that well. Receive the hunger and the fervor and the energy to dig deep and receive yet again what that well was intended for. Receive by the power of the Holy Spirit right now. Receive. Holy Spirit, reopen the wells that we might receive all you have for us. In Jesus' name, amen. We're going to come now.
Thanks for gathering with us this week and worshiping and hearing the message and all the stuff that makes the church. You're a part of it, wherever you're watching or whatever you're up to right now. Maybe it's just like in your pocket with some AirPods in, whatever you're listening. If you are tuning in, if you're here for this moment, then you're a part of We Are One. So welcome to the fam. And even bigger than that, it's not about being a part of We Are One. If you said yes to Jesus, then you're part of the family of God. And I want to be in heaven with you. I want to kick it one day. And I think a good step would even be connect with us. You can even go to weareoneyouth.com/fam. Click the link right there in the chat. It'll give you some resources, some things that you can take right here from step 1 to step 2. Could be devotionals or resources just for Christian living or serve opportunities, discipleship programs, things like that, as well as a digital Bible you can download and sign up to be baptized. I think it's so essential to take that next step. Maybe for somebody that's step 3, maybe Bible step 2, and this is step 3, whatever it is, but sign up to be water baptized. You can do it right here at this house or wherever you are. Just do it because it's a declaration of faith that you need to make in Jesus. Keep up with everything happening here though. We Are One because you're a part of it now at WAO Youth on all social media platforms. We love you. Hope you have a great rest of your day.